All right, welcome to Talkin Investing. I'm Tom, and as always, this is not financial advice. Today, I want to talk about Marathon Digital Holdings, stock ticker MARA. They are a Bitcoin mining company. We talk about Marathon all the time on this channel, as well as all the Bitcoin mining companies and Bitcoin. Marathon has a bunch of stuff going on. I most specifically want to talk about a situation with their production, but in addition to that, they have some other press releases and some big news that will be coming out soon. So I want to go through all things Marathon real quickly. So before we get started, a couple things real quick. If you guys could smash the like button, we're going for 700 likes. I want to thank everybody. We've been reaching our goal lately. It's made a huge difference for the channel. Also, we are just about to get to 20,000 subscribers. So if you enjoy Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners, and that's content that you're interested in, please consider subscribing to the channel. All right, let's talk about Marathon Digital Holdings. At the time I'm making this video, which is Thursday night, they finished the day at around $24.56. So it was a green day across the board, but I don't want to fixate so much on the price action today. What I really want to talk about is what's going on with them in general and what's going on with their production lately. They're having a few issues, and I want to go through those, hopefully shed a little bit of light, and I'm going to give you my thoughts as to what this means in the short term and what this means to the long term. Again, this is just my opinion, so let's try and dig in a little and see what's going on with Marathon and Marathon's production. Okay, we can start back with their January update. This came out on February 5th, so this was several weeks ago. Marathon's production in January of 2024 was way down from December of 2023. I did this chart comparing month over month. December of 2023 was a little bit of a special month. The Bitcoin mining fees were up significantly, so all the Bitcoin miners benefited in a big way from that. Marathon actually had some other things going on in the month of December, and that created what was the single best month of the year for any Bitcoin miner, and it was not even close. They mined 1,853 Bitcoin in the month of December, so that was off the charts. That was the record for 2023. That would have been the record in 2022 and 2021 as well. And when they did this, I did a video and I said, basically, I don't think you're going to see this number again. I don't think anybody is going to mine this many Bitcoin in a single month in the year 2024. Possibly in 2025, we'll see what happens, but they did set this record, and it's going to hold for a little while. Because remember, we are only a few months away from the halving, so obviously that's going to reduce the amount of Bitcoin each Bitcoin miner produces each month. So I do think it will be a long time before we see those numbers again. However, in January, you can see from this chart that all the Bitcoin miners had a big drop off. The average was about 20% month over month, and that made sense between a continuously increasing difficulty level of the overall Bitcoin network and the fact that the fees kind of came back down to earth. All the Bitcoin miners had a more difficult month in January. But you'll see the biggest reduction on this chart by far is Marathon right at the top, down 42% month over month from December to January. So they went from 1,853 Bitcoin to 1,084 Bitcoin. I did do a video on January if you want to check that out. I did a deep dive and I went through what I thought about that production number. I don't think it's as bad as it looks. And if you want more details, you can check that out. So you'll see in their January operational report, they came right out and said, the team worked hard to address several temporary disruptions that negatively impacted our production, and it went on to say, equipment failures that led to site outages and reduced our average operational hash rate 14% to 19.3 exahash in January. You'll see on the top of this, they had 26.4 potential exahash, so they were already running at a reduced capacity based on some outages. So later in that paragraph, they go on to say, our team is addressing the short-term disruptions and working to bring our sites back to full strength. We expect hash rate to improve over the next few weeks. So this was at the beginning of February, so that really indicated that even the first few weeks of February were going to be a little bit difficult for them. So, and taking a look at their production month to date, they are way behind in February where they were in January. And remember, in January, they were down 42% from December. So with 1,084 Bitcoin mined in January, it looks like they really have basically almost no chance of reaching that number. They've mined about 74 blocks through the month right now, and we're almost at the end of the 22nd day. February this year has 29 days. So they have 1 week left. So at this point, you know, if I were to give a guesstimate, it looks like maybe they're going to mine between 700 and 800 Bitcoin. There's no telling. Obviously, it depends on how they do over the next 7 days, but they are way off pace from the month of January. So this will now be 2 months in a row. They're going to go from 1,800 Bitcoin down to about 1,084 Bitcoin, and now it looks like they're going to fall maybe 2 or 3 or even 400 Bitcoin short of that number. So that's really the main reason I wanted to make this video, was to talk about the fact that I just want to give everybody a heads up. You can expect February to be a very tough number for Marathon. And there's some Marathon specific reasons for that. Now, in addition to that, the global hash rate did increase. The network difficulty had 2 big increases again. So all the Bitcoin miners are probably going to be down month over month again. But I do think that it's probable that Marathon will have the biggest drop downward as a percentage out of all the Bitcoin miners for the second month in a row. So I want to talk about 2 things, short-term implications and long-term implications. In the short term, I do think this is a big missed opportunity. These are probably 2 of the most unfortunate months for this to happen to Marathon. We are just a few months away from the halving. So while some of the other Bitcoin miners are actually running at full capacity and overclocking their machines to get every last Bitcoin they can while the reward is still where it is before the halving, Marathon finds themselves in the opposite position where their production numbers are lower than average. So the reason this makes a difference is several Bitcoin miners have dedicated themselves to really trying to increase their hodl position between now and the halving. So I expect they still will be able to add to the amount of Bitcoin on their balance sheet again in the month of February. But between January and February, there could be a lost opportunity of somewhere between, 500 or 800 or maybe even 1,000 extra Bitcoin that they could have potentially put on their balance sheet. After the halving, it is going to get exceptionally difficult for Bitcoin miners to put a lot of Bitcoin on their balance sheet and increase their hodl position. So these numbers are going to start to get locked in to a certain extent, at least in the short term, meaning the next 6 to 12 months. They put out a post here on Twitter, or X. This was on February 15th. Garden City facility is expected to be offline for 3 days for maintenance work on a nearby transmission switching station. They give a link to this press release from Applied Digital. Applied Digital is hosting these machines. So this press release talks about no maintenance work or repairs are required at the company's data center hosting facility. The outage is currently expected to last 3 days, while the overall maintenance activities are expected to last up to 2 weeks. So that's 3 days where Applied Digital really basically has to turn their machines off to accommodate the maintenance of this transmission station. Because Marathon has their own pool, we're really able to zero in and see exactly what effect this had on Marathon. I will tell you, on February 14th, Marathon mined 8 blocks. That was their best day of the month. Right after that, when maintenance began and they had to take these machines offline, you'll see on the 15th, they mined just 1 block. On the 16th, they did manage to mine 3 blocks. On the 17th, just 2 blocks. Here on the 18th, just 1 block. And then again on the 19th, just 1 block. So they should be averaging 5 or 6 blocks a day. Like I said, on the 14th, they had 8 blocks. There's days where they've had even significantly more than that. So you can see the 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, and 19th were all very difficult days. By the 21st, you'll see they had 5 blocks, and currently today they're at 3 blocks. So we're going to see how they do for the rest of the month. This leaves them with only 74 blocks as of the time that I'm making this video. So last month they mined 140 blocks. There's only 1 week left. They're not going to come anywhere close to that. The month before, they mined over 200 blocks. So you can see they're way, way off their pace. This is a little bit of a missed opportunity to get some extra Bitcoin on their balance sheet. But I will say, if we zoom out and take a look at the big picture, if we take a look at January, this is Bitcoin mined by Bitcoin miner. So Marathon was in first place. This was the 7th month in a row that Marathon was in first place as far as production on a monthly basis. This month of February, depending on how everybody else does, potentially Core Scientific, maybe for 1 month, could jump back ahead of them. Core Scientific's numbers are down as well, so we're going to have to see. You'll see it was very close in January. It'll probably be very close again in February, but I would expect things to return to more normalcy after that. So I think it's probable that for the rest of the year, Marathon will resume its position as the #1 producer of Bitcoin on a monthly basis for probably the rest of the year. Now, Core Scientific, CleanSpark, Riot are all going to be taking a shot at that title, but I think it's going to be tough for any of them to beat them. Now, if Marathon runs into more of these problems, obviously things could change. From a big picture standpoint, I don't think there's too much to take away from this little 2-month window of time here where production wasn't quite what it could have been, but I don't want to detract from Marathon. I do think this is one of the strongest Bitcoin mining companies out there. They're pretty much a leader across the board. They have the most exahash. They mine the most Bitcoin per month. They are going through some changes. They're going through some infrastructure changes. As of the end of the year, 2023, 97% of their machines were hosted by others. They're looking to make a major change and shift, so we'll see if there's some growing pains in the middle, but I do still put them among the strongest companies in the Bitcoin mining space, so obviously that's just my personal opinion. Another thing to put on everybody's radar is this press release came out last week. Marathon Digital Holdings schedules conference call for fourth quarter and fiscal year 2023 financial results. So this is going to happen next Wednesday, February 28th. They're going to report the results for the year 2023. So obviously we're going to get a massive amount of additional information at that time. Now that will pertain to 2023, so they're really not going to tell us much about February. However, that's going to come out February 28th. I would expect within the next 2 or 3 business days, we will get another press release talking about February's operational numbers and how many Bitcoin they mined in the month of February. So an awful lot of information is going to be coming our way regarding Marathon over the next, let's say, week and a half. The last thing real quick, this press release came out today. Marathon Digital Holdings launches Slipstream, a new direct transaction submission service designed to streamline confirmations for large or non-standard Bitcoin transactions. So I will tell you, I read this entire press release. It does not get extremely specific. This is one of the few press releases from a Bitcoin mining company that I think is less geared towards the investor and more geared towards their potential consumer. They're looking to attract people doing non-standard transactions, larger transactions. This is a potential source of revenue from them. I will read just one sentence. With Slipstream, users can directly submit their transactions to Marathon, provided these transactions adhere to the Bitcoin protocol and, importantly, the fees associated with them are sufficient. So you can see this is a potential source of additional revenue. This seems like probably a very, very small thing, but it is some innovation. We'll see what comes from this. I just wanted to put it on people's radar because it did come out today, the day I'm making this video. Lastly, just take a look at the Marathon chart. This is the Marathon chart on the 1-day time frame, and you'll see twice in the last few months, Marathon's gotten over $30 per share. Back on December 27th, all the Bitcoin miners hit a local high. That was actually their high for the year in 2023. And of course, that was after the crypto winter, so this was pretty much a 2-year high. They got up to, you can see, $31.30. They did get back to about $30.45 on February 15th. So just about 1 week ago. Since then, they have pulled back. They're at around $24.56 as I'm making this video. There's a lot of lines on here, but I just want to draw your attention to this area. I think there's a really strong line of support just under $19. And then there's kind of a box that I've made here. There's an even stronger line of support down here at $14.65. Now, it's entirely possible Marathon's not going to get back to any of these numbers. That is going to be largely dependent on a few things. Number one, how does Bitcoin do? Bitcoin's been trading in a range for the last week, somewhere between $51,000 and $53,000. So if we don't break out to the downside from that range, then I don't expect Marathon's going to get back to these numbers. But we don't know, as of course, Bitcoin and all cryptocurrencies being as volatile as they are, at any time, a 10 or 20% pullback is something that is on the table and possible. Bitcoin is overbought in a lot of ways from a technical standpoint. So if we do get a pullback, if Bitcoin gets under that 51,000 and maybe goes down and retests 48,000 or even some point below that, I do think it's possible Marathon gets back into this box, and I will be looking. I am dollar cost averaging into Marathon on an opportunistic basis. So if it doesn't get back to this range, then, I probably will leave this alone. I do want to reiterate, I'm just telling you guys what I'm doing. This is not financial advice. Please be very careful. Do your own due diligence. Your circumstances are certainly different than mine. Everybody has their own individual circumstances. Investment time frame, risk tolerance, all those things. So, it depends what other Bitcoin mining positions you have. So there's a lot of different ways to look at this chart. I would point out to you that I see a lot of support here in this, somewhere in this $15 to $19 range. And I do think, it's entirely possible. So the last thing I'll leave you with is these are very, very short-term price action that I'm talking about. I do think Marathon has a massive amount of room to the upside. Their peak in the previous Bitcoin cycle in November of 2021 was over $83. So that would be more than a triple from where they are right now. And, there's the potential for them to even go beyond that if Bitcoin does what we think it's going to do, and if Marathon can execute their plan and perform over the course of the next year or two. So as always, Marathon, as well as all the Bitcoin Bitcoin miners are extremely high volatile stocks. So please do your own due diligence, invest very carefully. So that's all things Marathon for right now. And again, just a reminder, we're going to get a lot of information next Wednesday on the 28th when they release their financial statements for the year 2023. And then a few days later when they release their operational results for the month of February. So that's what's going on with Marathon right now. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, if you have not yet subscribed, please consider subscribing to the channel. Again, we're taking a push for 20,000 subscribers, and don't forget to smash the like button. Thanks again for watching, and we will see you in the next video.